Hi, my name's Marcus Keating and this is Untitled Bab, a blog about art in Birmingham. Today I'm sitting in the very warm Vivid. It's a dark and cavernous space, but the roofs are super hot, I imagine, because it's really warm in here already. And I'm with Alex Billingham, who is a curator and artist and organiser of things, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
You've got your fingers in many pies, I suppose.
Okay.
So Alex and I met last year when Kate Spence, who was the curator of Vivid Live, she put together like an open call, didn't she?
Yeah.
For artists that were kind of working in performance and digital media and all kinds of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how I was kind of introduced to the Birmingham art scene, really.
Yeah, I think that's the first contact I had.
Yeah, I'd sort of, I'd been to openings and things, but because, I'd sort of been working full time for the last 3 years, there was no movement at that point.
Yeah.
So, I met Alex and I saw his work and then found out that he was part of a space called the Wig at the time. And the Wig had been around for...
About 5 or 6 years at that point.
Yeah.
I think it was Sonia Boyce, I think, who set it up. And then my partner Vicky took it over, mainly because nobody else wanted it at that point. So, and she was kind of, because she's not a curator, she was slightly sort of struggling with it all. So we kind of agreed that I'd do a program called Gestalt for a year, just to take the pressure off. So basically, because we've done shows and it's an awkward part of town to get to, audiences aren't great for it, so we thought, screw that, screw the audiences, we're going to focus back on the artists and do stuff that's helpful for them so they can sort of try out stuff that might fuck up or go really badly.
Yeah. Can I just point out, it's actually not in an awkward part of town. People are just unbelievably lazy getting across. Because Birmingham is stupidly walkable, and if you think about its proximity to Icon and then to the rest of the city, certainly from Digbeth, but I just kind of want to remind people that Digbeth is not the centre of the Birmingham art universe. It is great, and don't get me wrong, I love being here and there's lots of great stuff going on, but there are other venues.
I mean, we quite often walk from Vivid over to Failbetter, as it's now called.
Yeah.
It takes about an hour. We're quite crass for walkers, but even so.
Yeah. I mean, transport across the city and across any city is never great. Cities are great for going north and south, east and west. No. So the change from the Wig to Failbetter, how did that kind of come about?
Pretty much from the residency program. We did a launch night at Vivid because they very kindly sort of gave us a space to do it, and that was really cool to do a more exhibition-y type because we knew the audience would be there a bit more. And then the residency programs we found really good for the freedom for the artists, but they were too long, so artists were sort of spending the first couple of weeks going, I don't know, and then finally getting into it by the time it was ending. So we went, okay, if we are going to redo it, we're going to do a Kickstarter to see if there's actually any support there, and we were amazed at how much support there was for it.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Okay, that's really cool. So we did a complete rebuild right the way down to the ground and back up again, which, don't do a rebuild in January. It's so cold.
It was freezing, wasn't it?
Yes.
We all had 3 or 4 coats on at the same time.
But the Gestalt basically worked as a platform for what we're doing now. So we have 2-week residencies where each artist gets a mentor, which is one of the main team, which is me, Vicky Roden, Marcus Keating, Ed Wakefield, and Magdalena. And we sort of take them through what they're doing and what their idea is, and sort of whittle it down and try and push them into stuff that they haven't done before. Like we got Libby Cuffley as the first one this year, and she'd never done anything performance, so we did performance.
That was amazing, that performance.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to sort of push her. But we're also leaving gaps so we can actually do some hires and some private. I mean, we're now actually at the point where I think we've got 1 week where we're empty before the end of the year.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So I just realised I didn't put this on airplane mode. I might see whether I can quickly do that now, because otherwise we're going to get beeping throughout. There we go. So you have your own practice,
Yeah.
and it's, as far as I've seen, it's primarily performance.
Pretty much. I mean, I studied in Carlisle about 10 years ago, and then ran studios and gallery up there for about a year before basically ending up destitute and having to come home. So, oh, can I stay with
We've
you?
all been there.
And then slowly stopped doing less and less and less until about winter 2016. I went, oh fuck it, I'm going to try and do art. And started, and it's gone really well so far. So that's kind of a surprise, but a nice surprise.
So you're closer to Walsall, is that right?
Roundly, so Dudley kind of way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So proper West Midlands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Black Country.
Oh yes. So Black Country, they go. Also, that's not Black Country.
Yeah.
It's too posh.
The Waitrose of the Black Country. So now you're taking over from Kate Spence, the Vivid Live program.
Yeah, temporarily, just over the winter. I know they're putting out a live call in September, which I'm going to apply for.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes.
So what are your plans for Vivid Live between now and then?
I'm basically producing the existing program, but with a few tweaks of my own sort of personality bits. So there's a show by Nicola Hunter, who's a Northern artist who actually studied for the first year in uni.
Yeah, I think that show was postponed, wasn't it, before?
Yeah,
because
the artist has ME, so she had a severe bout of it.
Right.
So we're now programming it probably March next year, but haven't quite firmed up the dates yet. Yeah. And then either 1 or 2 live labs, which I'm planning on doing slightly differently to the existing ones, but building on what Kate's already done. So it's kind of like even if I don't get the job, which is entirely possible, whoever's coming has kind of got this consistent live lab program that it's changing, but you can see how it
the development
connects.
Because it's quite a new thing for Vivid, isn't it? It's only really 12 months old as it is, I think.
Pretty much, yeah. And that was obviously sort of down to Kate, sort of, and Yasmin and the board sort of agreeing that they wanted to do it. And they've done some fantastic shows with it. I mean, if I do get lucky enough to get it next year, I've got a few plans, but it's sort of like, see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got a project, a solo project coming up in the next few weeks at STRYX, is that right?
Yes, yeah. Called Ashes to Ashes, and it opens on the 31st of August, 7 p.m. For an opening night, and then it's open every Wednesday through Saturday until the 15th of September, from 12 till 4.
Great.
And I'm basically running it sort of as an open studio and as a work in progress, but not, because it's definitely a finished piece. It's just the first 2 hours I'll be making future minerals, which are sort of crystal projections of what the environmental waste we have today becomes. So for the first 2 hours I'll be making those and chatting to people about the exhibition in a specially designed sort of hut, and adding that to the exhibition. And then the last 2 I'll be filming experiments and test performances and interviews with people.
Right.
Which again, they're very welcome to interact with.
Sounds much more collaborative than previous works.
Yeah.
Because your works definitely have like an audience participatory kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
But there's always kind of like, well, for me as a participant, there's always like a tension between you as the performer and there's the parameters of what you can interact with and how you can interact are very kind of open-ended.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of scope with the performance work that I do, which I do quite like that interaction and playing with it. And last year I did a performance in Manchester which was grand and all, but I did find that the audience was really weird. They were much more sort of stand back and watch and don't interact with, and I was like, okay, this is difficult, right? So I had to basically leg it out into the audience and properly sort of pester them, elbow them into the space. And,
that's a pretty standard reaction, isn't it, to any kind of performance work? That's sort of default, I find.
It is, but I found that Birmingham's quite, I don't know if it's because of Hoffuss and Live Art and Vivid Live, but I think they expect to get dragged in a lot more.
Maybe. So, I guess if the environments, when you go to those specific spaces, you generally find work that you need to participate with. It's like building those things up, isn't it, slowly?
Yeah.
And I think particularly with your work, you know, I've sort of seen maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, at least 5.
Yeah, at least 5, I'd say, over the 12 months. And I feel like I've got a pretty solid understanding of what to expect, even though I understand that there's lots of kind of variation in that work. In terms of me being a participant, I've kind of got a vague idea of how I'm probably going to react.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not a fair thing to say. No,
I think that kind of is fair enough, because at the moment I very much view that the practice kind of started in 2016. So I spent last year very much learning how to do work again.
Yeah.
And this year I'm still doing that, but I'm starting to put it out there a bit further afield. But a lot of the work that I do is durational. It follows the same lines in respect of it pushes my body beyond what it can physically take. So I start to break down to whatever the design performance is, it starts to break down. So you end up with something that's very, very instinctive, and it's me reacting to the situation, following the guidelines that I've kind of set down.
Yeah.
So it's all about sort of breaking.
A bit of intuition, a bit more using those intuitive kind of skills within it.
And I think there's something quite interesting about seeing somebody who's obviously physically at the end of what they can do. Yeah,
well, you've tended to kind of hurt yourself quite a bit within.
Unintentionally.
Well, even some of the other performances where I've spoken to you afterwards, you know, for a good sort of 4 or 5 days, you seem to need recovery space. I mean, how sustainable do you think that is?
Oh, totally not. It's mainly because I've got a very dodgy left ankle as a result of a climbing accident.
Yeah.
So I know that when I get older...
Due to a performance?
Yeah. When I get older, I won't be able to probably walk quite as well, and I have to use a stick in the winter anyway to walk around. So it's that level of, while I still physically can, I want to do these performances that push the body in this way, because I know that won't be an option for me later on.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got 10 years where I can just about get away with it, maybe. Probably 5.
I mean, because I was thinking about this in the car, like the physical side of your practice, and how there is kind of not significant, but there are dangers, and there are kind of like responsibilities that you have to your own body and that kind of thing. I mean, you know, there's the public side is slightly
different, yeah.
But I mean, is there like an exorcism that's kind of happening, that you feel like you do this kind of work until you have gotten what it is you need out of your system?
Not really. I mean, I can totally see how it can be read that way, and given that I did have a strict Christian upbringing and the whole suffering is good for the soul, there's that element, and I'm aware that that's kind of a definite reading on it. But for me, it's more kind of, I think it's less exorcism, more like extreme sports, in respect of you want to get that particular kind of high that you only get through exhilaration and exhaustion, and you only get that kind of making of art when you're falling to pieces.
Yeah. It's almost the speaking in tongues bit, isn't it? It's like whipping yourself into that frenzy where you've got that small moment of...
Yeah, definitely that moment of perfect clarity, which is usually quite insane and quite off, but your mind's gone to that point where it's kind of like, this totally makes sense, and this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're currently freezing your ass off in a bath of glitter in February. Yeah. Yes, but I have to hit the 2-hour mark.
Well, it's interesting that lots of people, because I do know lots of artists, and not just artists actually, people who are not in the art world that do these kinds of things, whether it's like meditation or whether it's extreme bodybuilding, and that's not even just an example. My sister is an extreme bodybuilder, and so she kind of pushes herself to those moments of clarity.
Yeah.
I go to dance therapy on a Tuesday night, and I've got like maybe the last 15 minutes of dancing solidly for 2 hours is that moment of clarity, but it takes almost 2 hours to get
to
there.
that point. Yeah, there's definitely a run up to
yeah. But in all of these ways, and even meditation to a point, there are periods where you do put yourself in danger.
Yeah.
But it's worth that last kind of getting there push.
Providing you're aware of it, yeah. I mean, when I went into art, 'cause I know a lot of people who do blood arts, and a lot of people who do very bad blood art, and a lot of people who do very bad.
I'm not sure I know what good blood art is.
Well, I mean, Nicola Hunter, I'm curating. She's one of the few people who do blood art that I actually like. I have a natural dislike of blood art because it's so rip-off of Franco B, and so kind of like, I've seen this before, and so that was one of the things that I very much didn't want to do, but I like the extremeness of blood art in respect of it. It does take a certain degree of commitment, which I like in all kinds of art. It's that level of, it almost doesn't matter what styling, providing you believe in it and you've got that commitment to it, and that shows in the amount of work that you're putting in comes across, then whether I like the work or not, I'll respect how much effort you've put into it, which I think kind of comes from really basic William Morris stuff of truth to materials and sort of,
Yeah, I do agree to a point. I think it can be read in any artwork though, because you can kind of, there's lots of durational performance and, work that involves pushing bodies to extreme limits that, you can automatically kind of look at and see that actually that is just that person moving through something on their own. This doesn't involve anyone else, and it doesn't involve. But I mean, you can read those kind of self-indulgent things in any artwork, regardless. It all kind of comes down to, I don't know. There's a personal objectiveness to it, and
there's also if you're interested in a particular topic, and if they're, I don't just mean like physically committed to the idea. I mean like actually sort of that they really care about whatever the particular topic is or interest or thing that's intriguing. Like like I did a piece in London called Rawhide, which was 3 hours of putting on and taking off liquid latex and getting the audience to do it to me as well. But obviously scratching it off, so it was quite tough. But there's a lovely bit about halfway through, which is getting bandaging and binding across the chest, which is something that genetically female people do when they wish to appear more male. They bind their breasts down.
Yeah.
And because I'm genderqueer, there's a whole sort of playing that round and round. So doing the binding was quite nice, and that was actually the piece that touched one of the members of the audience the most out of the whole thing, because they were able to identify with that, and it's those little connections that I quite like, and the bits that are shown that you've researched and you're interested in, you know that field, and it isn't just your experiences of it.
And I think that's the key bit, is that they're not the thing that is other than just your experience. Because I think the things that I connect with your work are those gender questioning things, those in between spaces that I have experiences of myself. And I think for a lot of reading of any artwork, a lot of the time you're reading something of yourself, and that is what you're getting.
Totally.
It's almost like a way of therapy in a way through someone else's practice.
And it's lovely to see those connections.
I
mean, a big bit with the PR that I did for that show was to put in that it's body dysmorphia, and that everyone has a bad hair day. Everyone feels itchy in their own skin.
Yeah.
So it's that way of making sure there was an in for the audience of you can ignore the gender stuff.
Yeah.
It's totally there, but it's not necessarily integral to the work.
Yeah, yeah. I think the work that I've enjoyed most of yours was the last performance work that you did at STRYX, which I'm not sure what it was called, but it was you were in like a tunic and a bandage over your eyes, and you were completely at the kind of,
the mercy?
Yeah, absolutely, of the audience and also the other participating artists and also performers in that show.
Yeah. I mean, that one was called which was for We Don't Talk Anymore Part 2, which was Dan Auerbach, who'd done the first one as part of the Gestalt residency at the Wig, so it was quite a nice
part 2 to that
thing. But yeah, we had not exactly an argument, but quite a long discussion about the blindfold, because it was actually medical blindfold. It had the cushioning of an artist's clothes, so I could just about work out temperature variations, but that with the amount of light coming through the bandaging, but that was it.
Yeah.
He was very keen on me having bandages with holes in and my eyes open, so I could actually see a little bit.
No, it was fantastic as it was. I thought
I had to fight quite strongly for that kind of look. I like you, Dan, but there's no way I can do this performance if I can see even remotely.
Absolutely.
But that was a lot of negotiation with the other artists and space and with Dan.
Well, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you're kind of like their artworks are also in jeopardy of where you are.
Yeah, totally. And it's having to respect that they've got a show to put on and they've got a public to take care of. And it's a matter of cause from the outside they look very dangerous and they look very problematic and they look very, but from the inside I've worked through most of the possibilities. I've gone up and down the stairs to STRYX with the blindfold on. I've walked around the space, mapped it out in my head. So yes, a lot of it was getting turned around and getting lost and having absolutely no idea where I was. Then walking very carefully to a wall, figuring out from the texture of the wall or the shape of it where I was, and then remapping.
I think the reason one of the reasons that I liked it so much was that it was really minimal. That there was, because I find that your work can be very. I know maximal is not a term, but I do often think of it.
It's all the way up to 12.
And so there's the moment you kind of come in and see it. There's almost for me too much to decode. I'm quite lazy a lot of the time, and I'll kind of give something 4 or 5 seconds before I either stop and turn back or just carry on. I don't think I'm alone with that.
No. That's how I build a lot of the work. It's so overladen, so that you can come in, because they're 3 or 5 hours. I don't expect it to be around for more than a couple of minutes, maybe, but I do want them to come back and see something different than what they saw 3 hours ago. So it isn't just a repeated process. So I do overload them so that they are kind of, if somebody is of the inclination to stay for the full 3 hours, they can actually sit down and watch a full performance that does change, and it does have a lot in there. So there's enough so that you could theoretically watch it for 3 hours, but I wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
With that STRYX work though, I stayed there and watched that for longer than I've watched any of the others. But I think part of it was the blindfold as well, because it was I could be so passive with it. I knew that you weren't looking back, so it was very voyeuristic for us in the audience. Whereas it's really different when you don't, because there's this kind of element of, oh shit, is he going to involve me in some way?
There's the fear that isn't necessarily. I mean, looking back at the pictures and because obviously the people were doing stuff in the space as well, it was a case of start of the day I'd just walk out in my clothes, very slowly start taking my clothes off, so people weren't sure if I was just a crazy person and eventually in costume, and then do the performance end of it, take it off. But the moment the bandage came off at the end, it was the first time I'd seen the space since the start. So everybody else has seen this nice gradual progression. It was a case of, what the hell happened? And all the pictures after of people interacting with me, it's like, I had no idea that was going on.
It's a big without moment, isn't it? You know, that there's been something that you've not experienced through actually doing it.
Kind of like having a 2-hour blackout, but being there-ish.
So do you want to remind us of the dates and the launch times and that for your new STRYX show?
Yes, that will be launching on the 31st of August at 7 p.m. For the opening night, and then it's open the following day, Saturday, from 12 till 4. And then it's open every Wednesday through to Saturday, 12 till 4, until the 15th of September, which is the last day.
Gee, you've got a good memory. I can't even remember people's names. I get people's names wrong all the time. Well, thanks for the chat.
Thank you so much for into it.
Good luck with all the install and all that kind of stuff. I unfortunately won't be able to make the launch, but I will be able to make one of the other dates down the track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously DFF it will be open, which is, I suspect that most people will see it.
Yes, yeah. Digbeth First Rider, that's next.
The 6th.
Is that right?
No. Oh, that date I have.
It's soon. Oh no! Yours is in a
It might not be the September DFF.
Yes, that's right. So you will have had a couple of days to kind of
Yeah.
feel it out a little bit.
Well, I'll have done an open performance on the opening night, and then probably the same performance for DFF, which is exactly a week later.
Do you really want to quickly plug Sophie's show, because you're obviously her mentor for Fail Better, the Gestalt program?
I'm curating Sophie Bancroft, who hasn't made work for 6 years. She's doing the 4th residency at Fail Better, maybe 5th. And this Sunday from 2 till 5, she's got a piece of work which is really good. You'll only be able to see it that one occasion, so it's probably Mayfly event. And it's, I can't really say anything about it without spoiling it.
You're keeping it.
Yeah, we're keeping it so secret. We usually advertise like crazy, but this one it's like, no, you've just got to come and see it.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Great. Thanks a lot for that. And I shall speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me.